Ultraman is a Japanese tokusatsu television series that first aired in 1966. Ultraman is a follow-up to the television series Ultra Q, though not technically a sequel or spin-off. The show was produced by the Tsuburaya Productions, and was broadcast on Tokyo Broadcasting System from July 17, 1966 to April 9, 1967, with a total of 39 episodes. Although Ultraman is the first series to feature an Ultra-Crusader, it is actually the second show in the Ultra series. Ultra Q was the first. In fact, Ultraman opens with the Ultra Q logo exploding into the Ultraman logo. Ultraman ultimately became a major pop culture phenomenon in Japan. The show's success spawned dozens of sequels, spin-offs, imitators, parodies and remakes. To distinguish him from subsequent characters named Ultraman, Ultraman is referred to as the original Ultraman, the first Ultraman, or Ultraman Hayata. This last is a reference to his host's surname. Series background: Ultraman's central characters were created by Eiji Tsuburaya from Tsuburaya Productions, a pioneer in special effects who was responsible for bringing Godzilla to life in 1954. The show's predecessor was a series called Ultra Q, a black-and-white 28-episode series very much like the original Outer Limits. The Ultraman project had the following working titles: plots: Woo. The story featured a corporeal space creature with two large eyes, who befriended a reporter named Jaji Akita, but the self-defense forces, who perceived the alien as a threat, went after them. This was basically the monster version of the British science fiction series Doctor Who, and Woo's personality was also to be comical. The name Woo ended up being used for an otherwise unrelated, Yeti-like monster, in episode 30 of Ultraman. Later, Tsuburaya Productions would ultimately produce a series dubbed Bioplanet Woo, in January 2006, but this series is very loosely based on the original concept. Beamula, then retitled Scientific Special Search Party, Beamula. The main characters are a defense force, with the same Japanese name as the Science Special Search Party, but disguised as an art photography team. One of the members, little did anyone know, gained the ability to transform into a giant bird-like humanoid monster called Beamula, who defends Earth from monsters, aliens and other threats. Unlike Woo, Beamula was a tough and righteous fighter, and he looked very similar in design to the title monster of the 1967 kaiju film Gappa, the Triphibian monster. Allegedly, the plot was scrapped when it was worried audiences might have trouble telling that one monster was good and the other evil. Redman, the title hero of this project, slightly resembled Ultraman as he came to be known, but he looked more demonic and had horns. He came to Earth after his planet was destroyed by aliens from Planet X. Both Beamula and Redman were designed by Toru Narita, who also came up with the final design for Ultraman based on his Redman design, now resembling a less scary Buck Rogers-style alien being, mixed with a bit of the iconic Roswell alien. The characteristic color timer, more familiar to American audiences as the warning light on Ultraman's chest, was added at the 11th hour. The first series begins when Science Special Search Party member Shin Hayata is flying his plane and a red sphere of light crashes into his mini VTOL. The sphere turns out to be the transport for a red and silver giant being who calls himself Ultraman. Feeling remorse for having killed the human, he merges his essence with Hayata to revive him. In return, Hayata serves as the human form for this being, and whenever danger threatens, and the resources of the Science Special Search Party are not enough to counter it, he raises and activates a power object and artifact called a beta capsule, and transforms to Ultraman to save the day. Heroes and monsters. The Ultraman series used various monster costumes, known as kaiju in Japan, prior to other series such as Kamen Rider and Himtsu Sentai Goringa. The principals were played by famous monster suit actor Haruo Nakajima, who performed as the original Godzilla. Another Toho actor, Satoshi Bin Furuya, was sought out for the role of Ultraman, because of his tall stature and perfect proportions. Nakajima had an outdoor sports and martial arts background, and they decided that Ultraman would not seem alien if he was using earthbound martial arts techniques. So Ultraman's fighting style was a mixture of grappling, Greco-Roman wrestling, and some Japanese martial arts, which evolved during the course of the series. Often costumes of famous monsters like Godzilla and Baragon would be recycled and altered, sometimes with nothing more than spray paint and often while the actor was still inside. Nakajima quipped once that the staggering gait of some of the monsters he portrayed was due less to his acting than to the fumes he had to endure. Some of the quadrupedal monster costumes could not be shown fully as his legs dragging on the ground would have been exposed, a necessary allowance to maintain balance in the often cumbersome outfits. Also, the expense of repairing the scale cities and landscapes used for battle scenes required economy of movement and meticulous planning. Story: the storyline begins in the near future, as referenced from the mid-1960s. Sinister aliens and giant monsters constantly threaten civilization during this period. The only Earth organization equipped to handle these disasters is the Science Special Search Party, or SSSP, a special worldwide police force equipped with high-tech weapons and vehicles, as well as extensive scientific and engineering facilities. This organization is called the Science Special Search Party, or the United Nations Scientific Investigation Agency, in the English dubbed versions syndicated in the United States. The branch of the Science Special Search Party that is focused on in the series is located in Tokyo, Japan. Led by Captain Toshio Muramatsu, the Science Special Search Party is always ready to protect the Earth from rampaging monsters, but sometimes it finds itself outclassed. When the situation becomes desperate, Shin Hayata, the patrol's most capable member, holds the key to salvation in the form of a power object and artifact called the Beta Capsule, which, whenever activated, allows him to transform secretly into the superhumanoid power giant from space, who becomes known to the people of Earth as Ultraman. Ultraman remains until the threat is neutralized and then flies away to revert to Hayata. Ultraman's victory is never assured, however, as Ultraman's powers and, indeed, his very life force, come from rapidly depleted, stored solar energy. At the beginning of each transformation from Hayata to Ultraman, the warning light on the giant's chest begins as a steady blue color. Yet as Ultraman exerts himself, the color timer, as it is also called, turns red, then blinks slowly at first, then with increasing rapidity as his energy reserves get closer to exhaustion. As the voiceover narration reminds the viewer, beginning with episode 2 and for each episode thereafter, if Ultraman ever reaches the point of total energy depletion, he will never rise again. In episode 39, Farewell Ultraman, Ultraman fights an enemy called Zeton, leader of an army of monsters bent on destroying all the Ultra-Crusaders, who employs an unexpected weapon against Ultraman 1 which damages his color timer warning light and disables his ability to measure his power supply. As a result, Ultraman stays in his full-size form too long and collapses into a dormant state. Fortunately, despite this loss, the Science Special Search Party's members are able to defeat Zeton on their own. When Zoffy, Ultraman's superior, comes to retrieve the fallen hero, Ultraman pleads for Hayata's life and offers his life completely, so that Hayata may live as a normal man. Zoffy then says he has brought 2 life forces and that he will give one to Hayata. He then separates them, giving Hayata new life, but Hayata seems to have no memory between the time he first collides with Ultraman's ship, and his standing outside Science Special Search Party headquarters as he watches Zoffy take Ultraman home. This is a rather different finish to the series than stated in the English dub, which states both that Ultraman will return and that Hayata retains his Beta Capsule as he awaits Ultraman's return. Characters: Science Special Search Party, Captain Toshio Muramatsu, the Science Special Search Party's leader. He is known as Captain Mura in the US version. Actor: Akichi Kobayashi. Daisuke Garashi, the Science Special Search Party's rotund tough guy marksman. Actor: Sandayo Dokumamushi. Mitsuhiro Ide, the Science Special Search Party's somewhat comical inventor. Although he sometimes feels that Ultraman's intervention makes his role useless, his inventions have occasionally been critical in saving the day, such as helping the superhero defeat particularly formidable monsters. He is known as Ito in the US version. Actor: Masanori Naihu, also known as Masanori Naihu. Naihu won the role when originally cast actor Suzumu Ishikawa left the production. Akiko Fuji, the Science Special Search Party's radio communications operator, and ostensibly their token female member. However, in most adventures, Fuji proves to be the most level-headed and capable member after Hayata. Actor, Hiroko Sakurai. Osamu Oshino, a little boy who is friends with the local kids. The Science Special Search Party's unofficial mascot, he also tends to visit the Science Special Search Party's headquarters to hang out with the full-fledged members. He often gets into trouble, and sometimes Ultraman has to save him. Later on, his courage during one of the Science Special Search Party's missions allows him to be issued a Science Special Search Party uniform and to go on some of their other missions. He is known as Oshino Fuji in the US version, which describes him as Akiko Fuji's younger brother. Actor, Aklight Suzuha. Shin Hayata, the Science Special Search Party's brave, no-nonsense deputy captain. His life changed irreversibly when Ultraman accidentally crashed into his Delta VTOL with his travel sphere and killed him, destroying both ships. To make amends, Ultraman merges his own life force into that of the Earthman before the brain functions of the latter are irreversibly terminated, thus reviving him. He then gives Hayata the power object called the Beta Capsule, a microphone-shaped cylinder device, with which he can transform into Ultraman by depressing a red push-button switch on its side with his thumb to activate it. According to Kurobe, there was no audition for the role of Hayata and simply took the role after Exegs ordered him to take it without choice. Actor, Suzumu Kurobe. Ultraman himself is played by Bin Satoshi Furuya. Episodes: Ultra Operation No. 1, Blast the Invaders, Science Special Search Party, Move Out, 5 Seconds to Detonation, Secret of the Milliganda, The Coast Guard Command, The Blue Stone of Valage, The Wild Monster Zone, Operation Uranium, The Mysterious Dinosaur Base, The Rascal from Outer Space, Cry of the Mummy, Oil SOS. The Pearl Defense Directive, Terrifying Cosmic Rays, Science Special Search Party into Space, Passport to Infinity, The Brother from Another World, Demons Rise Again, Terror on Route 87, Breach the Wall of Smoke, Sabotage Terran, My Home is the Earth, The Undersea Science Center, Strange Comet Siphon, The Prince of Monsters, Part 1, The Prince of Monsters, Part 2, Human Specimens 5 and 6, The Challenge into Subterra, Phantom of the Snow Mountains, Who Goes There? The Endless Counterattack, The Forbidden Words, A Gift from the Sky, The Monster Graveyard, Arashi, Don't Shoot. The Littlest Hero, The Spaceship Rescue Command, Farewell, Ultraman, Special Film, Revive. Ultraman, Theme Song, Ultraman no Yuta, Lyrics Authorship, Kaya Ikiyazuma, Music Composition, Kunio Miyoshi, Performing Artist, Misuza Children's Choral Group. Home Media. In 2006, BCI Eclipse officially released Ultraman on DVD under license from then rights holder Chayo Productions. These releases featured the original Japanese soundtrack and the English dub. When Navar folded BCI Eclipse in December 2008, the series was shuffled over to Navar's other home video label, Mill Creek Entertainment. In June 2009, Mill Creek re-released the complete series set on September 29, 2009, in a 4-disc set with the same special features. In Japan, there have been numerous releases in numerous home video formats over the last 25 years on several labels, including Bandai's various home video divisions, including Bandai Visual. On April 2013, Tsuburaya held a press conference announcing the new Ultra series show and character, Ultraman Ginga, where they also announced that the original 1966 show will be given an HD remaster treatment in Japan. On July 2013, Tsuburaya released an HD transfer of Ultraman on Blu-ray titled, Ultraman HD Remaster 2.0, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Tsuburaya Productions. Tsuburaya plans to release the series on 3 separate box sets, each containing 13 episodes. The first box set was released on July 10, 2013, the second on October 25, 2013 and the final set is planned for January 29, 2014. Adaptations: Harvey Comics Entertainment published 2 short comic book series based on Ultraman in 1993 and 1994. Bandai published the video game PD Ultraman Battle Collection 64 for the Nintendo 64 in 1997. In 2011, a manga adaptation simply titled Ultraman began serialization in Shogakukan's monthly Heroes magazine. It serves as a sequel to the television series. Malaysian book ban. On March 6, 2014, the Malaysian Ministry of Home Affairs announced that it had banned the publication of an Ultraman comic book Ultraman, the Ultra Power, due to contents that were detrimental to public order. Social media users later noticed that a page in the book described the character of Ultraman King as a god, which in the Malaysian pidgin language Bahasa Rojak is the Arabic word Allah. The Home Ministry later confirmed that the use of Allah was indeed the reason for the ban, claiming that the comparison may confuse Muslim children and damage their faith. This highlighted the larger ban to prevent non-Muslims in Malaysia from using the word Allah despite its common usage in the Malaysian pidgin to refer to any god, as well as a suit from the Catholic Church of Malaysia over its usage. See also, the Ultra-Crusader a complete list of official Ultraman-related shows. Bioplanet Wu, Ultra Monsters a list of Ultraman's foes. References. External links, Ultraman, a special effects fantasy series at the Internet Movie Database, Ultraman at the Internet Movie Database.